Hi and welcome to this week's ReaperTV video. In this episode I'm going to take you through and show you how we can deal with rendering stems in Reaper. So we're going to take a look at how we can do the basics, we're going to go through a few advanced options, and I'm going to show you how you can name these logically and quickly and easily. So let's take a look at all of that right now. So I've got a project open and I've got everything organized and I've gone through and done all the basics, the mixing and so on. So I'm now ready to render this out stems. Now I may want to be doing this because I want to work with a simplified project that has the finalized version of each of the audio tracks output, or maybe sending this off to someone else to deal with the final mixing and the mastering. Whatever reason, we need to supply stems. And all we're going to do is go through and start off with the basics. So we're going to come down and we're going to go to the drums to start off with. And let's just expand the drum section out, and you can see I currently have a whole collection of drums. You can see everything is broken down into each individual track. We've got those routed through a parent at the top, the drums master, and we've got everything set up the way I normally set it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of the drum tracks we want to output as stems. So I'm going to click on the first one, scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to click on the final one, and there's all the drum tracks ready to render out as stems. So what I'm going to do is come to File, and we're going to come down to Render. Once we've done that, we've got the option at the top to say Source, and you can see Master Mix is the default. We've got Stems, Selected Tracks as the second option. So ensuring we've got that selected, we can then go through and do all the normal things we'd like to do. First of all, we can go through and specify the format. Obviously, you want to output this as WAV files because you want to send the best quality audio. There's no point in recording this in great quality and then send it in rubbish quality files to be mastered. So making sure you select WAV files. We can go to the track name then, and we can deal with this in various different ways. The first thing we can do is specify the directory output. So browse for that, find it on your system, and you can see I've already got that set up on my desktop in a folder that I've created with the track name ready. Underneath that, we can put the track name itself in, and then finally you can see it tells us what it's going to do, where it's going to render it to, and the file name it's going to use. So if we come down, we can see the sample rate options, all the various different things. It tells us it's going to render 16 different files. So if I clicked on render 16 files now, that'll go through and start rendering those files out. So you can see it'll run through the entire thing in faster than real time, render all those files out for us, and automatically increment the file name by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on for the number of files it's dealing with. So once it's done that, we're going to end up with a series of files like so. So you can see that we've got all of the files in there. At the moment it's telling us 0 kilobytes because it's still rendering those out. We've got the file type and so on, and everything is rendered out as you'd expect it to. But it doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. It tells us Livewire track 001 and so on, but that could be anything. We don't know what instrument that is. We have no idea. We just know that there are now 16 WAV files with audio input them. So let's go back and take a look at how we can make this just a little bit more logical and give it some more meaning when we render those files out. So let's come back to the file and come down to render again. And let's give these a bit more meaning. Let's get rid of the name Livewire. We'll just remove that from there, and we're going to start using some wildcards. So we click on wildcards, and you can see we have a whole range of different wildcard options available to us. Now these are going to give things like the track number, the track name, the song title, the file name, and so on. So all these different parameters can be used to build up a file name that makes more sense, that will automatically be created based upon the content. So if we take a look at our track structure, this is why it makes a lot more sense to ensure that you name all of your individual tracks so they become a lot more logical, not only in your working environment, but also when you do things like rendering the stems out, because you can reference that information. So let's start these things off by going to wildcards, and we're going to come down and we're going to say track number, and you can see it now tells us underneath, we can see 25.wav, which will give us an indication of the number of the track. We could then come down and just put a space in there, and we can put wildcard in there, and we can say track. So you can see that says now track 25 kicks. So let's just go to the beginning, and we can mix and match to say track, if I can spell that today, track 25, put a like that, track. So we now got track 25 kicks, And we can go in and do other things on there if we wanted to put other information in this. You can see we can come in, we've got region, name count, and so on. Starting beats, whole range of different things, even the tempo. So we could come down to that, put that in there, and you can see 132. And if we take a look at the BPM at the top, that makes a lot of sense now because that tells us the BPM. So we can drop BPM in there if we want to, so we let anyone know that's using this exactly what that 132 reference is. So there we go. Now, so we hit render 16 files, that'll go through now and render those 16 files again in faster than real time. Bring the folder in, you can see we now have a much more logical range of file names. Makes a lot more sense to anybody that may be using these rendered stems. That's okay though, but one of the things you'll notice is this rendering everything out as stereo files. Now that's not always the case. A lot of these different things like the kicks and the snare top and bottom and so on, they're mono files. So we're just ending up with bigger files with no additional information that's going to have any benefit to that. So we can easily change that very quickly. All we need to do is come back into the render settings, come down to render, and then we've got the option that says tracks with only mono media to mono files. Check that and hit render 16 files. That will now start rendering those out as mono files where applicable and stereo files as stereo files. Now, as you can see, by doing that, we get individual tracks for each individual instrument component. In the instance of drums, you can see we've got the kick, the snare, and so on. Now, that might not always be the case. We may only want to output the entire drum kit or output the entire bass. So we've got the mix the way we want it. We don't want that to be messed around with. Well, we can do that quite easily as well. If you deal with parent tracks, which is something that I'd recommend you do just for the fact that it makes the whole process and the whole layout just considerably easier, we can use those as the rendered stems as opposed to the individual components underneath. So if we take the drum kit as an example, you can see I've got a drum master track. So if I select that and we come up to render, do the same again, make sure that we've got everything set up in there, anything that's relevant. You can see the track 23 drum master, not necessarily so relevant, so we could easily take that out if we wanted to and just have, as you can see, drum master 132 BPM, or BMP for some strange reason. Let's put BPM in there. So that makes sense. Now do the same thing again, so you can see we can render that to one file. We can do the same, we've got render tracks mono to mono files. We could do multi-channel tracks to multi-channel files if we wanted to as well. So let's just say render one file. Let that run through. As you can see, that's now going to output one stereo file that's going to be just the drum kit in its entirety. So again, quite quick and easy without having all of the individual components output. And if we take a look, there we go. There's our drum master track. So there we go. That's how easy it is to deal with that. Obviously, we're not just limited to only doing that. We can do multiple different ones. So if we just delete that, come over and we'll just go up to the track and we'll say select each of these master tracks, including the reverb. We now have all of those parent tracks selected. And if we come up and do render, you can see all the same options are there. We just hit render 6 files in this example, let that run through, and as you can see, we've now got stereo tracks and mono tracks being output at the relevant points. So that'll go through the entire process now and output the relevant pieces of information, the relevant audio. We've got our stems then all ready to be sent off to be mastered and everything else that we need done with it. And there we go. There's all our tracks, all output, ready to be sent off to be dealt with. Well, that's all there is to creating stems in Reaper. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you insight into how you can deal with your audio output and how you can deal with all the naming and the different formats you can use in this. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of the new content we add every single week. Until next time, take care.